People who skip sleep tend to gain weight, and here's why. If you have gained a little in the last 2 weeks, check your sleeping habits. A bad night's sleep can affect your performance the next day in many ways. However, a 2016 study found a link between sleep deprivation and weight gain. This is what you need to keep in mind when you keep your figure or help to make the diet work much better. If you sleep less than the recommended hours depending on your age, this can affect you negatively in many ways the next day. For example, reduce your productivity, your energy, make you more irritable and even argue with others, especially your partner. And we must now add a potential weight gain to the top of this list. Research conducted by King's College London and Vrije University in Amsterdam in 2016 showed that partial sleep deprivation was associated with increased caloric intake the next day. The study analyzed 11 studies examining the link between sleep deprivation and weight gain. They included a total of 172 participants. In all cases, some participants were deprived of sleep for up to 2 weeks, while others were not. After this period, their caloric intake was counted. In the 11 studies, most sleep deprivation participants received an average of 385 more calories than participants without sleep deprivation. Although these studies looked at the results of sleep deprivation for 2 weeks, scientists think the effects and calories could add up if they last longer. Participants also chose foods other than those where they slept well, mainly in the form of fatty foods. They also ate less protein-rich foods. Interestingly, the amount of carbohydrates consumed was largely the same. Do you know what remained the same? Your activity levels. This means that we gain weight if we do not sleep enough, and then consume more calories without burning more calories. It's a simple calculation. Researchers believe that lack of sleep, as one study shows, affects our hormones of hunger and satiety. However, other studies indicate that it can also interfere with the area of our brain associated with motivation and reward. After a bad night and with less energy, we just want delicious and immediately rewarding food without the stress of looking for it or preparing it. But the consequences of a bad night's sleep are not felt. Another study found that people who did not sleep well the next day chose different foods than they would normally eat and chose fatty foods most of the time. When people eat greasy foods such as hamburgers and fried chicken, they find it harder to fall asleep and sleep well at night, which encourages them to choose fatty foods and add extra calories. This in turn affects the rest and leads to a cycle of sleep disorders. This is where unhealthy food begins. Another study found that people who did not sleep well the next day chose different foods than they would normally eat and chose fatty foods most of the time. When people eat greasy foods such as hamburgers and fried chicken, they find it harder to fall asleep and sleep well at night, which encourages them to choose fatty foods and add extra calories. This in turn affects the rest and leads to a cycle of sleep disorders. This is where unhealthy food begins.